Imagine me not being able to get married because I'm on credit bureau. Chat. Hello my beauties, how's everyone doing? If you are new here, my name is Zona Devani and I welcome you to my channel. Here we talk all things self-development, fashion, style, beauty, faith, femininity, you name it, we are on it. If you are interested in any of those things that I've mentioned, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell next to it so you don't miss a single new entry from my channel. And to my returning beauties, my sisters, my people, welcome back. It is lovely to see you again. We haven't had a sit down video in a while, so I thought today let us sit and chat just like the old times. And just between me and you, sit down videos are my favorite. But just to stay in touch with you, I will give you the vlogs as well. Speaking of vlogs, the last vlog that I uploaded on the channel was my anniversary celebration with my husband, from which I received lots of responses from you ladies, particularly on Instagram after watching this video. Many ladies asking me to share what I did to prepare myself for marriage, which I found really interesting and was ready to jump at it and share. So today's video is about things that I did to prepare myself before getting married. If this is something that you are interested in, you better get your tea ready just like I have mine, because we're gonna be sipping on a lot of tea, my own tea to be specific. Without wasting any time, let's get into today's video. Before going into these things that I changed and worked on myself, I just want to give you a quick disclaimer. I am not a professional at anything relating to marriage. I am just living my life, but I am sharing the journey and what I feel was very necessary for me, that I am proud of myself for having done. Now, you can agree or disagree with this. You are perfectly welcome to, as long as we respect each other and of course my space, which I am sharing all this information on. Otherwise, I'm cool. You can leave your own comments, the changes that you're working on yourself as you prepare or as you were preparing to get married. Let me give you a brief background about myself. I am a born-again Christian in South Africa. In my 30s, I'm a mother of 3. I've been married for about 2.5 years now, but I had my big white wedding in 2021, which is what we celebrated the anniversary to. I'm happily married. I'm at peace. It's been going well so far. Now, to get into what I worked on myself before getting married, it was really important for me to work on these things. When I got into the relationship I ended up getting married into, I saw another element to myself because I felt I was loved right. That exposed some shortcomings on my side as well. Things like finding it difficult to receive love, not understanding how to reciprocate. So the first thing I needed to do with myself and by myself before getting married was to work on the way I receive love and reciprocate it. Receiving love, it was easy for me, but reciprocating it was a bit difficult in that I would call it the princess syndrome. I noticed it within myself that I had built up this persona around myself that I needed to receive all the love, which, as I was talking to my therapist, which is another point that's gonna come up, stemmed back from wanting to make a man who chooses to love me treat me like the princess that my father never treated me as. And I never cared to admit this or even notice it until I was just about to get married and I was with someone that I felt I needed to reciprocate the love for. I had not been great at that. When I took a step back to just watch my patterns over past failed relationships, I noticed that I may have been lacking on how to reciprocate love. That also affects how I receive it, because if it feels like it's a lot of love and there might be an expectation from my side, even if someone had not said that they are expecting, I would immediately coil back and not want to receive that love. It's a crazy place to be in that I want the love, I want the princess treatment, but I also don't want it to a point where I'm expected to reciprocate, which is crazy. I had to work on those things to make sure that I'm getting into forever having that great balance. Moving on to point number 2. Point number 2 was going into therapy for me. In the relationship that turned out to be marriage, my husband is really firm. He's very loving and kind towards me, but he will correct you if you are wrong. And that was something I was not used to. And with some of the things that we would talk about, he actually reminded me of a therapist that I once saw and I dropped along the way. So from the relationship we were in, I actually asked for some time out for a good 5 months. And in that 5 months, it's not that I wasn't sure if I love him or not. I knew for sure, but being in love and in that relationship at the time resurrected something within me to seek healing, you know, because I could see from the very early stages of that relationship that it was leading to marriage. In the relationship itself, some of the issues that were glaring to me that would be a problem when I'm within the marriage just started to shine. And if there's any quality that I love about myself, is that I am quick to see something wrong with myself or something that needs some work. I'm really good at saying that. Even if someone points it out to me in a gentle and in a loving manner, I will take that and introspect and look into it. Obviously, if I feel like this is some kind of judgment in a negative manner, then I'll cast that off. But it does pass through the stage of being dissected by me and in prayer as well, so that I can be corrected. Going into therapy is one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself. This is maybe just second to me being born again, you know. I feel like being in therapy helped me unpack a lot of things that needed to be resolved within me. And the therapist I went to see is within the Christian faith, which I feel is something that helped me a lot, because the advice came in the perspective that is already aligned to my values. Going into therapy, healing some personal psychological wounds that were there before actually going into marriage was a great preparation for me. Obviously, you can never say as a person you are fully ready for any big step into your life, but taking those steps for me was a big directly connected into the therapy point, getting to a place of forgiveness and resolving my daddy issues. I'll keep raising this because I feel it was such a turning point in my life across all aspects, but in particular going into marriage. And my husband, then we were just dating, was one of the people that really motivated me towards this. He came at me on the Christian level on how God really implores us to forgive, and also in a gentle manner because he loves me. And now that we are more open with one another, he has openly told me how I would immediately coil up when asked about my father. So he was one of those motivating people in my life to actually take the step to forgive my father. This also came up in my conversation with my therapist. I did not just leave it at forgiving him. I think I may have shared on the channel about how my forgiveness for my father came about. It was really spiritual. It was after a prayer and fasting that God really made it clear to me that I needed to forgive him, not for anything else, but for my greater well-being and being in a great space with my Lord and improving my relationship. After that, I continued with the therapy, just expressing myself about what had happened, because forgiveness and daddy issues don't just disappear overnight. I believe that even though the forgiveness aspect was miraculous on my side, it was completely divine intervention for me to take that step. However, I needed to follow through with this, and as I knew, I could see where the relationship was leading, and during that break I saw how dangerous it could have been for me to continue with that hate and anger harbored towards my father, because it didn't just affect that particular relationship, but it affected how I was and how I received love, how I acted in the relationship, how I wanted to be treated, and you know, just my attitude altogether towards the gender of men. I talk about this countless times on the channel because it is something I experienced. I'm not exaggerating, or I'm not playing light, and I'm not saying this will be the experience for anyone who has experienced abandonment from their fathers, but I feel like resolving those issues before getting married did me a lot of good, just to get in, you know, and how I have been even now within the marriage. By the way, how are you finding this conversation today? I feel like it's just so serious and we have not done this kind of thing in a while, but I feel these are conversations that we need to have, you know, especially if you have a common vision as me. You are someone who loves marriage, who wants to commit, who wants it to work, or who even wants to get into a marriage. This is not something for everyone, obviously, because every single day on social media you will see people say marriage is not an achievement, whatever. If you are like me, you consider it a big blessing that you want to get into and want to give it your best version of yourself. These tips right here are some of the things that helped me, just sharing on my personal perspective, and just to personalize it for anyone, even if to you don't necessarily have daddy issues or anything like that. I feel like if you have matters from your childhood or your own family that are unresolved, it is a great idea to work on those before you actually become one with someone else, because this is very spiritual. In marriage you become one, so whatever burdens that you carry, they become theirs as well. And all these burdens, psychological matters, affect how we become to our spouses, to our children. So I feel for me, having that load lifted off my shoulders helped me to get into marriage more confident and more at peace. Most of those things that I did were not as just before getting married. Some of them dated to 1 or even 2 years before even meeting my husband. One of those was to work on my finances. This was something that I had learned growing up and just hearing about marriage, that when you get into a marriage you need to get in debt free so that you are not burdening the person that you're going to be marrying. I had been on that journey myself before I even met my husband, which is another aspect that I want to talk about. Taking that time to sit back and really be clear on where you are going as an individual across all aspects of your life, including your finances, before wanting to be with someone and finding yourself being a burden to that person. I felt I needed to be someone who's gonna add something into my spouse's life, not to get into his life and immediately get him sinking into debt. I needed to get myself sorted out. I was already on my way to being debt free. I had been receiving one clearance letter from another, and also I knew whom I wanted to marry us. It was a minister that we both know, that we actually bumped into on our first date. He walked into the restaurant that we were at, and so I knew his style. I had heard and I'd been listening to his radio show for years. He would say couples that go to him must bring 3 months bank statements. So I needed to work on myself so that when that time comes, I don't show up on the credit bureau and I'm just clear on my spending. That was a motivating factor. However, it was just something I felt I needed to do, and the fact that Utadima Pinda was gonna raise it was an even bigger push. Imagine me not being able to get married because I'm on credit bureau. Chat. This is actually something I love about my premarital counseling. How candid, how open we are made to become. In summary, just getting my finances in order before getting married. Before getting married, I also needed to let go of my past. This is something that is so embarrassing to even talk about, but I will say it right now. For the longest time, I had like a bit of a friendship with an ex from way back that things didn't even work out with. But once I saw that I was getting into a relationship that was leading towards marriage, even during the 5 months that I had asked time out from my relationship, I made sure to cut all ties with that past. Even though I knew for sure there was nothing romantic that could ever happen, I just felt like I didn't want to have a man who has such a past with me still having so much access towards me. You know, I didn't even tell my husband about such a person and all that at the time. I just decided against it myself. No influences, no nothing. I was building boundaries around my family from the onset. I was not going to continue with such a friendship because I knew for sure that I wouldn't be comfortable myself if my husband was to have this ongoing friendship with an ex. I'm not saying this should be the case for everyone, obviously, but for my particular situation, I didn't find anything positive to gain from being friends with someone I once was romantically linked with. I know for sure I wouldn't be comfortable with that with my husband. I could be judged for being jealous or insecure or whatever, but that's just something I'm not comfortable with. They can be fine, they can be civil and all that, but to be friends that talk almost every day or just talk a lot more regularly than they should, then I would have a problem with that. So I had to make sure that I don't do things that I wouldn't be happy with my husband doing. Another thing that I did to prepare myself just before marriage was to talk extensively with my son. For those who don't know, I have a son that I had when I was 22 who has been with me. It had just been the two of us for the longest time. He used to nag me that he wants a stepfather. When am I gonna start dating again? So I had to heavily engage with him just to make sure that I was setting good ground for the blended family that we were walking into. And also I orchestrated and I planned around the meeting and just to see how they related to each other. And it was so comforting for me to see how well they bonded. I don't even want to lie, I don't think I would have been able to marry someone who could not connect with my son. So it was one of those things that I needed to make sure about. I was not expecting instant sparks or anything like that, but I wanted to see intention from both sides to come together, and I was not doing anything. Everything just happened so organically and it was amazing to watch. For me, it's one of the things that made me so sure that I was making the right decision. It is something that even during my dating stages I would talk about my son very early on. I didn't want to do any surprises, you know, and I didn't want to continue with even just a conversation with someone who's saying they're not willing to compromise on the area of someone having a child. I never wanted anyone to make me feel like they were doing me a favor to take me with my son. That was just an area I was not ready to compromise on. So that was one of the things that I made sure about before even discussing marriage, you know, before getting married. So you are noting that all these things that I'm talking about are focused on they are focused on I because I was gonna get married to someone. I needed to take my own responsibility for my own behaviors and really work on becoming the best version of myself so that I know what I'm there to offer. I fully understand what I'm getting myself into. I had to be really intentional about these preparations for myself because unfortunately for me, I had not seen a healthy marriage being modeled in front of me. My mom had the unfortunate situation of being divorced. No one around me growing up displayed that to me. It was just, you know, people, extended family and all that, but not something I was seeing every single day. My information sources were external sources, maybe in church and reading books and all that. So I felt I needed to take it upon myself to prepare myself. Obviously you can't be fully prepared for something that you are not experiencing because you are taking from other people's experiences about it until you get in. However, I do feel like there are things now that when I experience it, I'm like, oh, thank God I learned about this. Oh, thank God I've worked on myself around the area of forgiveness, around the area of just being peace driven, and just being solution driven, with a heart full of faith that things are gonna work out, and trusting God that I'm in a marriage which is a gift from him, which is just something beautiful. So a mindset shift before even going in had to take place for me before I can give it my all. This one I feel is the most important. Before getting married, I prayed. I prayed. I don't remember any stage in my life that I prayed more than I did back then. I had a particular day that is set aside to pray for my marriage. I still have that day even now, but I was just more vigorous back then and on preparation. I would fast that. It was actually a Monday. I would fast that entire Monday just praying for my marriage, because I felt like, because this is a thing of God, I can't go into it with all humanly wisdom and not spiritual growth and stability. I prayed about it. I prayed not just for myself but for my spouse as well, for God to work on him on all areas of his life, to bless him so that he can have money to spend on me and our kids, just to bless him with health, all these things that I was praying for myself, I was praying for my spouse as well, because iron sharpens iron. I needed him sharp, as a needle, so that he can sharpen me as well. And I just prayed even for myself to be in a great place, to take steps that were wise, that I would not later regret. This next one might sound a little silly, but I did it anyway. Before getting married, I started to share a little less about my life on social media, which I feel now that I'm settled into marriage, I'm starting to get a little loose about, and I need to revisit. I started to share less and less about myself, about my relationship, about my mood even. I just felt like if I'm getting into a marriage, I'm becoming one with my husband, and whatever I do in whatever platform will be a reflection on him. I started to post less about my personal life under those grounds, and also just wanting to maintain a peaceful life, a drama-free life, because obviously the drama that will come from being overexposed. People can't attack what they don't know. I like that saying. So I started to post less and less leading up to my marriage. I didn't feel comfortable even with people knowing when am I getting married, or when did I get married, when my lobola was taking place, and all that, which I feel it's not a rule for everyone, but I just felt like it was so sacred for me. These were things that no one needed to know about me. I just wanted to savor each moment and just enjoy it with my closest people. So before getting married, I really took it down a notch. I really slowed down. I also didn't want my husband just worrying about his privacy before we even get married. It was such a big deal for me that I take things slowly. I didn't even say anything to him. He didn't say anything to me, but I just felt like it was not the right time to be sharing our plans, or when are we getting what, when are we doing what. Even on an individual basis, I felt like I didn't need to be exposing myself. It is something I had already started to do, having started my journey into being more feminine, to share less about myself. I used to share a lot on social media. I've just always been that kind of person who likes social media and the internet. It's naturally how I've been since varsity, since about 2007, 2008. I just instantly fell in love with things like MySpace, Blogspot, Facebook, and just blogging my life. I just decided to take things down a notch. Please give this video a thumbs up if you are enjoying this conversation, and of course you're always welcomed to share your own take on whatever matters that I chat about here on the comment section. And if you are enjoying the conversation so far and you have not yet subscribed, please do so. Take this as a friendly reminder to do the right thing and subscribe. And now, last but certainly not least, the one thing that I did before getting married was to work on my attitude. I'm a really sarcastic person, and sarcasm can easily come off as disrespect, especially if the person, you didn't grow up with that person, you are not studying the same things and whatever. And it's not just sarcasm, you know, but I have an attitude problem sometimes. It used to be worse, but Jesus Christ is working on me, okay? My husband raised us one because I can be so sarcastic. I can explain why though. In my family, we are so silly. Everyone is funny there and laugh it off immediately. This is with all the love. Me and my sister, you can listen to us, we'll snap at each other and we will laugh, or like things like, isn't that obvious, like things like that. And doing those things to someone who did not grow up with you can easily hurt them. So I needed to be more aware of how I speak. This is something that has helped me in all areas of my life, not just in my marriage. I feel like sometimes we get away with a lot of things because we think we're being funny, but we need to be aware of how other people receive these things and how familiar they are of your kind of attitude or the vibe that you're putting out there. I've always been a kind person. Sometimes I would not understand if that may not sit well with a person. And again, to be quite honest, I didn't care more when it comes to men. Yeah, so I needed to work on that. It is something that the Lord is still working on with me. I still have those eyes that will just, you know, tell a story. But as a woman in my 30s, that is really immature. I must be able to express myself, you know, in a respectful manner. So that is one of the things that I was intentional with even getting into the marriage, because it is something that even my husband had highlighted before we got married. But he's the sweetest guy. He won't say anything to you when you are doing it, and when the time is right, he will find his time and say to you, oh, but baby, when you say that or when you do that, I feel a little disrespected. There is no way I am saying I got into my marriage fully prepared. I simply did what I could. I feel like nothing can ever prepare you for something as big as this one, but this was just to highlight to you what I went through on a personal journey, in hopes that you will look at this and reflect on your side, whether you are about to get married or you are already in there, and you see some signs of yourself in what I am sharing here to have been something that I corrected and I continue to correct within myself. And with God's help, definitely do take the time to introspect and reflect. And also, as you do that, don't be shy to comment here or chat with me via Instagram to continue with this conversation. With that said, we have reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on my next video. I love you. God bless you.